Quick intro. You guys want to see my favorite monitor, essentially probably that money can buy. It's not mine, it's a loaner, but I did have the one generation before this one. However, I moved so I couldn't take it with me. Lenovo sent this monitor over when I get to my new place, because I'm going to be finalizing my move to a new place eventually. I'll be buying this one for sure, unless they let me steal it, which they won't. So let's take a look at this monitor. This is a good monitor for gaming, honestly, a very good monitor for gaming, and an incredible monitor for professional tasks. This thing is crazy. Let's have a look. So here it is. This is the ThinkVision from Lenovo, P40WD-40. 40 is the generation. I had the generation before and I loved it. And they made improvements this time. So what is this here? This is a huge monitor. It may not look big on camera. That right there is a really big tower. This is a huge monitor. It is a 40-inch monitor, 40-inch ultra-wide, but it's not a super ultra-wide. What does that mean? Well, it has more height. So if you get yourself a traditional 34-inch ultra-wide, it'll be about this tall. And they actually end up being about as tall as a 27-inch. So 27-inch normal monitor is about this tall, and a 32-inch normal monitor is about this tall. So a 34-inch screen, when it's ultra-wide, would be about here, right? A little bit lower, which is fine, especially if it's up close to you. But for me, that's a problem because I actually move my stuff back a fair bit, and I actually typically miss the height. I have an ultra wide right now, but it's a 34-inch, and I really do miss that extra height that a 32-inch gives you. But with a 32-inch monitor, I miss the width. So here it's perfect, right? So you're basically taking what would be, a 4K monitor, something like this, and just adding a big section to it. Tons of extra monitor here, tons and tons of extra monitor. So here's how these would basically stack up. What we see here is we have overlay kind of thing I just drew on of a 32-inch screen. Let's just say it's a 32-inch 4K screen. Pretty standard size for a large monitor, and you can see here what we're doing here. We're getting the exact same height, but we're just adding on some width here, some extra width on the side there. That's lovely. That's exactly what you'd want if you like the size of the 32-inch for height up here, but you really want more side, right? You need extra panels, that kind of stuff. It can really be quite nice. And then you can see here, some people will go with a 34-inch ultra-wide. That's a pretty standard ultra-wide side here. And you can see, yeah, that's fairly wide, right? But you do lose a lot of height on those 34-inch ultra-wides. That's what I'm using right now, a 34-inch ultra-wide. And it's okay, but I really do miss that extra height here. So for me, when I'm going with, the extra height that I want over here, the problem is I lose that width with the standard 32. So I'm like, all right, well, I need that extra width. So I go with the ultra-wide. But then the problem is I'm losing a ton of height. So that can be unfortunate. So this solves that, and you get the ultra wide aspect ratio, but then you also get that extra height over here. So just in a single kind of infographic, you can see here, this is the 40-inch ultra wide we're looking at today. We'll just put 4K, for example. And you can see this is what you get with a standard 32. It's the same height exactly. You just get more width. And then you can see over here, the other two options, which they also nest within each other, 34-inch ultra wide and 27. And we can see the difference here. You have the shorter ultra wides and the taller ultra wides, and then you have the standard aspect ratios between them. Now, that's a lot of extra monitor, so you would be worried potentially about, okay, well, it's a lot of monitor, but am I going to have really, really bad pixel density as a result? Because, larger monitors with the same resolution, as you increase the monitor size, your pixel density goes down. It looks more blocky. This is a very high resolution screen. 5120 by 2160. So it's a 4K monitor in terms of like this here, and they just tack more pixels on it. So consider it a 4K ultra wide. That's I guess the proper term to use here. They call it 5K, like people use the term 5K. I call it a 4K ultra wide. That's what I'm going to call it. It's a 4K ultra wide monitor. It's amazing, right? So you can play games at 4K normally. It's good for me for testing things at native 4K. How well do they perform? Then of course you can use more resolution here too. It also does scale down evenly then as a result into 1440p ultra wide, things like that. Sometimes you have to make like customs, that kind of stuff, but it will scale down just fine if you decide to do that. You can go with 4K, the standard 4K, right? If you're like playing a game and it doesn't have native support, you can just play standard 4K. That's a normal 4K monitor, right? You can see the mouse won't go any further over, right? So it's way more flexible. Having more pixel, more resolution, you can divide things out a little better. So that's one huge advantage here. Who would want this screen? Well, anybody, honestly. It's pretty expensive, but for what it is, it's actually fair. So first things first, it's 120 hertz. So you always worry about this productivity monitors not being 120 hertz, even for professional tasks. Even if you're not gaming, refresh matters, because I'll go like this real quick. If I put it to 60 here, right? A lot of these pro monitors are 60, and I can see, let's go like this. I can see this being like, you won't see it because I can record at 60 hertz. You'll see basically the same won't make a difference. But for me, that's very, very like pixely. It's very choppy. It's like just like a choppy experience, right? You go up to 75, that's a big jump. That's the previous one. 120 is a huge jump, right? Not just for gaming, but for things being smooth. Everything like visibly, as soon as I do that, this looks, oh, it looks so buttery and smooth to me. You won't see it again, but to me it's super smooth. Scrolling, it's lovely. So for professional tasks, it's night and day difference. Going from 60 hertz up to 120 hertz, even 75 looks better, but 75 to 120, you can still notice the difference. That's great. And it's high pixel density. So you have a very pixel dense screen with very, very high refresh. Already it's amazing, right? You have ultra wide benefits. So if you're doing professional tasks, it's larger. That's fantastic. Also, it's good for gamers, right? You might need a pretty beefy card, GPU, if you're going to be driving AAA modern titles at 4K ultra wide, right? That's a lot of pixels. So you're not going to want to get yourself a 4060 GPU or something. Unless you play sports, it might be okay, but you're not going to want something like that. You're going to want a higher tier GPU. 5070 Ti, 5080, 5090, 9070 XT, 9070. These are the levels of GPU you'd want for something like this if you're going to play AAA titles. I had the previous generation of this screen for many months. I think it was like 6 months or 7 months or something like that. And I didn't have the beefiest GPU, and it worked just fine. Honestly, it worked just fine. I had no problems with it. It was great for gaming. But I was always aiming for 60 FPS. That's the best I could do. Nowadays, I have a more powerful GPU, so I would drive better. Like I'm going to be testing this with a 5080 just to show that. IPS, thankfully, is IPS. You don't want OLED in a professional monitor. You're going to get PWM flicker, potential burn-in, eye strain, all that kind of stuff. IPS is the way to go. No glare on this thing. This is a brutally glare room. Like I have a big light on the top, a huge window to the left over here, and this thing's doing a very good job. Other things here, it has good, excellent color space, good refresh, so you get decent response time, 4 milliseconds. It's fine, honestly, for gaming, it's fine. Unless you're again, a professional esports gamer, which in case you're not gonna get this anyways. 200 to 1, pretty good for an IPS. Incredible color space, 98% DCI-P3, so you're going to get very vivid reds, and that will show that. 10-bit color depth, very good. It's tuned, average delta E -2, so it's a very well tuned thing. Another cool thing here, it's a freaking KVM. It's actually a KVM. So if you can see here, let me actually get some lighting here because it's a little hard to see because of the angle. Down there's a little KVM. It actually pops up. So you click that down, and it's not just a KVM, it's a Thunderbolt equipped KVM with power delivery. So you can do 140 watts charging. You get 2 USB-Cs on the front here and a USB-A. Very good. Let's go look at more ports because there's so many freaking ports on this thing. So you do get that little front thing where you can plug it into like a laptop. If you have a MacBook or if you have a Windows PC, whatever you take with you, you come home and you plug in that little KVM thing there and you can just plug stuff in directly. Up here though, you do get 3 connection types. So you get HDMI, DisplayPort, very nice. This is your Thunderbolt, your first Thunderbolt. This is the Thunderbolt down, right? So you can add like a dock into that. This is the Thunderbolt that goes to your computer. So, your laptop does display over Thunderbolt, or your Mac if you're using a Mac, like a Mac Mini, they do that anyways. And you get Thunderbolt type display out, which will be nice and fast, and it's 140 watt charging. So you can charge like a pretty beefy system. Lenovo has USB-C up to 140 watts on like some of their laptops and that, like Legions and that. I might test it with a Legion. I have one that I'm working on. USB-B, Ethernet plugged into this thing. So you can wire up Ethernet and 3 more USB-A. So you can actually use it like literally as a dock. You can put your little USB-A dongle in there, plug it in, and it works as a dock. So this is a Thunderbolt KVM, Thunderbolt dock. I mean, it's just a great product, right? It's just a really great product. You're going to get the functionality of a dock, Thunderbolt 4 dock with power. You get the function of like a KVM type setup where you can just switch between the displays, and you get that little thing in the front there. This thing is crazy. Of course, this is a really big screen, so you'd want to have good ergonomics, and it does have ergonomics. It does have the wire hiding here. A nice big base there to give it nice sturdy. You can do things like you can actually set your phone in here, right? That kind of stuff. So you can just look at it. So you can, if you need to have access to text, you can put a tablet or your phone in there just so you can see it while you're going. Very nice. What else is interesting here? Up and down. It goes very, very, very low. So depending on how high your seat is, you can bring it way down low. That's lovely. That's a little low for me, but it's not bad. Up high is kind of high for me. So I would probably be, probably like that for the recording purposes at least. And of course it is also pivot. Right? Now you don't have, that, it would be too big anyways, but it does have something like that. So you can set it up exactly how you want, and it's gonna be nice. Nice, good ergos on it too. But before that, let's get a little screen here. So again, it's not an OLED, but it has very good blacks. 2000-1 is pretty good, honestly, for an IPS. And this looks nice and uniform. Typically, you know, you're not using this in a completely pitch black room, not specifically designed only for gaming. So you're not really gonna notice the blacks, I guess. You know, it's a non-glossy as well. So it may not have the absolute blacks of something like a glossy OLED, but you also have no reflections here. Like, can you even see that? You can a little bit. That's actually worse for you. I don't see myself really at all. Could be an angle thing, like maybe, yeah, like that light there, I can barely see that. I mean, the cameras always are looking for contrast, so I actually don't see that at all. But anyways, so it's good blacks, we'll put it that way, and very rich, vibrant colors. So we can come in here, right, go like that there. So these reds are looking nice and vibrant, nice and crisp, right? Good color space. And of course, there are the different modes too, right? DCI P3, even richer. So it depends what you're doing, right? I was just changing it over here. sRGB is going to be more for, you know, like photography and that kind of stuff, like more professional, I don't know, like for photography, print media, that kind of stuff. DCI P3, however, is better for digital media. So the sRGB, you know, it's going to be more accurately representing what something would be if you, for example, printed out. This camera might not even do it justice. So what I'm going to do here is actually bring in my phone at the same time. Because this is a DCI P3 screen with multiple modes, you can switch for what you're doing. Okay, so you need work that benefits from sRGB, put in sRGB. If you're just viewing content, doing professional stuff like what I do, I prefer the richness of these colors here just really popping off the screen. And so I always use these in DCI P3. And it's such a nice screen. It's such a nice screen. I can't put it across on camera how nice this is. You'd have to see it. You can just kind of see what it looks like with like beautiful colors, black. Look at those blacks. Like it's really good. Greens are super saturated. It looks amazing. It's such a good screen. Like I said, this is my end game screen. This is not mine, it's a loaner. When I get to my final place, I will be buying the screen. Trust me. It'll be a little while off until I'm fully settled in, but you will see this screen on my channel. I guarantee you this will be in the background of like my channel going forward. This is my kind of screen. Every negative that I had about the previous model of it, there weren't very many, but there's a couple here and there. They're all addressed here. Now, one thing you might want to consider here is getting power toys when you have one of these big monitors. It doesn't matter as much when you have a multi-monitor setup because you can typically just manage it with the Windows like auto snap functions and, you know, get all that kind of set up here. So you can come in here and go fancy zones. We'll go fancy zones. Okay, load that up. And you can create fancy zones here. And what I mean by that is zones for snapping. So you just hit that and you can see there's different options. Right now the default is 3. This is pretty common. This is usually what I use. And you can tweak them. Like you could break that up in half if you wanted. That's the priority grid. We can go custom like this grid. And then you can half these, right? So this is like a decent option here, something like that. And then go like this. We'll use that for now. Okay. Now you can see it goes away. Like you don't see it, but now you can snap to it. So we'll come in here, we'll open that back up. Now nothing happens. If I snap, it's the normal Windows snapper, right? But if we hold Shift, it pops up, right? So I can, for example, make this one be like, well, this probably over here would be more like a YouTube one. You know, this could be my primary like viewing panel where if I have like, I don't know, like a document. And then over here we have some YouTube because I'm just cruising through YouTube. And you know, maybe down here I have, I don't know, Discord or something. What else? What do these kids use nowadays? I use Discord too. Something like that, right? This is my professional side over here. This is my casual side. Or if you're just going pure professional, right? You can have research over here. You can have your writing here. You can have like an Excel sheet over here. Maybe that would be the other way around. This would be your Excel sheet. These are just things you're looking up. Auxiliary numbers. Or you have like a file manager over here where because you need to access the files, you're dragging them around, right? It's a productivity monster is what it is. Okay, now here's where things get super interesting, and that is video editing. This is the editor that I use. You can use whatever you want. Look at it, it's glorious. It doesn't ever come across on camera because camera's camera, but to me, this is at this range, this is exactly where my peripheral vision would be like optimal. Obviously beyond that is still periphery, but it's like blurry. This is where it's like, okay, everything is like in my sight here. This is perfect. Now you can do it this way where you have this giant setup here and you know, you get the full timeline as a result. Let's just bring in, I don't know, is there any videos here? Just whatever that is. I'm not sure what that is. This video, sure, whatever it is. And right, you can bring these in and you get this huge timeline, right? We know what an ultra wide is, right? We know what an ultra wide is. But the thing is, it's also an ultra wide with high pixel density and it's more height. it's a 5K. So look at all these tracks, right? 1, 2, this is double track, but that's video, audio, video, audio, video, audio. So 2, 4, 6, there's enough room for 8, 10, maybe 12, but definitely 11. You can get all those tracks in there, right? Like it's very impressive. Let's go like that. Yeah, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And yeah, just half of the other one. So you can get a lot of tracks on there, right? And because it's pixel dense, they don't look small. They don't look bloated. They don't look messed up. It looks good, right? Of course, you can also, if you don't use that many, I usually use 4 tracks. That's typically how much I use for a big video. It depends on the video. This video here would probably be a dual. So I'd have, 4 tracks total. Video game testing, that kind of stuff, typically I'd have another 2 tracks. So that's just for me. So I would actually bring that down. And then the other thing is you have this huge area here for the video editor I use, media. Then you have a huge viewing window here. So I would do something like that there, right? That's now a 4K 32-inch monitor. Like that is exactly how a 4K 32-inch monitor would look, right? There's an extra room over here. So it's still fantastic as it is, right? And then over here, you can do things like you can have your files, right? I could have my files up here, something maybe like that, because maybe you're dragging in a lot of files, pulling out files quite a bit. Like that's maybe how you would have something like that. It's an empty file apparently. Bring in files like that, bring in files like that. And if you need auxiliary stuff, or if you just like to have something on the side, like on the go, right? You can put I didn't mean to do that. Awesome, 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 awesome. Okay, we'll just do a quick little audio test here again. Not stereo studio speakers, but they should sound okay overall. That's loud. So honestly, 30, everything's maxed in the system, but 30 here, it's pretty loud. I probably wouldn't go any louder than that. It's a little tinny, obviously. I mean, it's monitor speakers, right? At this lower volume here, this is still pretty loud. At this lower volume here, this is probably where, like working level, watching TV, or watching YouTube, watching shows there, watching Netflix, whatever it is, you'll be fine, right? It'll be all good. Playing some games, it'll be good. I suspect a lot of people, maybe use headphones or might get speaker set up, but it gets you just hit the ground running. If you don't need really high quality speakers, then it's more than enough. You just use them. They're totally fine. I think for a lot of people, and I suspect they will actually just be fine. Okay, now here's a review unit I'm working on. It's a Lenovo ThinkPad. This is a very high-end P16 Gen 3 with Blackwell 5000. This thing's a beast. This thing, it charges only over USB-C for one thing. It loves USB-C charging, so we're gonna go like that here. And you can see that, it's gonna click over, but you can see there, 52%, 50%. It's immediately charging. The laptop is immediately charging. It'll figure out where it wants to display. There we go. So, you go about your work for the day, you come home and you plug in. Now this laptop, does this have HDMI? Wait, there's no way it doesn't. Yeah, it does on the back. This has HDMI, so it's not the biggest deal. I could just use HDMI. One of the nice things about USB though is it also charges it, whereas HDMI will not. So for the streamlined experience, you can just use the Thunderbolt 4, USB 4 connector there, and there's no problems whatsoever. It's going to charge the laptop and data, display, all that kind of stuff. But the alternative here is that if you come in and let's click that, switch this over. And go like that. And we're going to go, I'll just show it on that, so this one, I don't have to use it. But you could certainly have this as a dual screen setup, no problems there whatsoever. Audio is going to come up there, everything. There's some other cool stuff here, of course, going on as well. So you can see there's a drive here. Let's bring you guys in a little closer. Okay, we'll go like that there. So that's a drive right there, right? That is actually this. Ugh, if I can reach it, it's so tucked back. It's a Thunderbolt 5 enclosure. So, laptops may not have a lot. If you have a MacBook, for one thing, they have terrible storage, or a Mac Mini, whichever. A lot of laptops, this laptop can have extra storage because it's a big boy, but a lot of laptops don't. You might even only get one storage drive in there. Maybe you're not even a 2280, so you might be able to only put the 2 terabytes. Here, I have an 8 terabyte NVMe in there, right? And it's plugged. This is not plugged into the laptop. This is plugged into the monitor. So this singular cable here now, this Thunderbolt cable right here, that's plugged into the monitor is driving the display and data and all that kind of stuff. And of course I have this little this little thing here, so I could plug in, switch it around, plug in stuff here. Right, that's that USB that I was using before. There you go. It popped up, right? And it's great. And it's nice and fast too. But okay, but it's still going to give you really good speeds, right? It's still going to give you 3000 or so. So yeah, it's great. Now, again, not a gaming monitor, whatever that means. but it is a gaming monitor. It's 120 hertz refresh, which is super high, and it's 5K. So I mean, you're not going to be pushing many modern AAA titles at super high 120 FPS frame rates on a 5K ultra wide or 4K ultra wide, whatever you want to call it. I mean, again, most games are not as hard to run as Cyberpunk. Like, there are hundreds of thousands of games out there on PC, and most of them aren't the most demanding AAA titles. So any of those would run like nothing. It'd be no effort. However, there are still, you know, desires for people to play demanding games with demanding setup. So that was ray tracing ultra well. I mean, it is a 5080. So let's just go normal ultra to start here. Right, you can do all kinds of stuff here. We'll go something like that there. Right, and it's very acceptable. This is now 5K or 4K ultra wide in Cyberpunk on ultra presets, and it's a 5080. Like, there's still more powerful GPUs in this, 5090. So let's, we can come in here, play with some settings and that. But one thing that you want to do is set up VSync. This thing doesn't have G-Sync and FreeSync and that kind of stuff. But VSync has been around forever, and you're not playing competitive online shooters, so whatever. And then you don't get screen tearing, right, at all. So, and because it's 120 hertz, like, there's not a lot of GPUs that are going to be able to push games like this above 120 FPS. To be honest, it's just they don't really exist, right? Like a 5090. I don't even think a 5090 could do it, to be honest. Like, it's a pretty powerful, it's a 5080. You're not getting twice the FPS on a 5090, put it that way. But again, this is also a very demanding game at a very demanding preset here, right? You don't have to play Cyberpunk here, but you can. This is going to run incredibly well. The nice thing as well is because it's a higher resolution, you can use more scaling. That's generally how this works. So the more the resolution that you're outputting is, the higher, sorry, the more scaling you can use without it looking weird. Right now we're at like 82, right? This is such an immersive experience, right? You get the ultra wide experience. It's a big physically tall screen and it looks fantastic. The other nice thing about it as well is it does have a very slight curve, not an aggressive curve, just a very, very light curve to it. I don't like super aggressive curves because super aggressive curves here can be like just too much. It's disoriented and nauseating. A little bit of an aggressive curve, especially on a big screen, is good for whether you're doing gaming or if you're doing professional tasks, this kind of stuff. A very, very light curve just means that, things aren't off kilter. It's an IPS, so you don't get kind of like washout anyways at different angles, but that very gentle curve does help with things looking natural. If the curve was too aggressive, it would actually cause like lines to be uneven and wouldn't be necessarily good. Here we don't have that issue. It looks fantastic. It's going to be great.